A chart showing crypto whales dumping billions of dollars is spreading like wildfire across crypto right now, when altcoin holders, well, they're absolutely starting to panic. But what if I told you this whole story is completely wrong? What if the real story behind this is far more sinister than you may think? Well, if you're worried about whales dumping their Bitcoin right now, and if you're worried about the end of the market coming, then this is a video you cannot afford to miss. Before we get into it though, do not forget, if you find yourself enjoying this, but most importantly, if you learn something new today, you can help support all I do with a like down there. If you're new, make sure you of course are subscribed as well, and welcome to the no BS side of crypto. Bitcoin whales are dumping. Bitcoin whales have sold $12 billion worth of Bitcoin over the last 30 days. They're aggressively selling, and large holders have sold the biggest amount since 2022. This chart has caused a lot of panic over the last few days, and it's been circulating around to the crypto side of Twitter. You can see guys like Eric asking the question, is the exodus starting? And you can see that it's kind of for a good reason, right? At least it looks bad at face value, because Bitcoin holders who hold 1,000 to 10,000 Bitcoin have been aggressively selling. What this chart actually looks at here is the change in the holdings of Bitcoin whales over the last 30 days. So it's negative by quite a lot. If I actually pull this chart here up and show you guys this, we're negative now somewhere around 100,000 Bitcoin in the last 30 days. So the question is, why are they selling? Well, I have the answer. And like I said, it's far more sinister than just they're taking profits. The thing is, I do want to spend the better part of this video, after I describe what's actually happening here, diving into a lot of the facts around where we possibly are in this crypto cycle to ultimately help you, look at avoiding all of this noise and confusion, basically reasons to make you want to sell your Bitcoin, okay? And again, it's not financial advice, but hear me out. So the answer here actually lies in, who are these whales? Well, in my experience, not too many people have between 1 to 10,000 Bitcoin. We're talking about billions of dollars here, guys who are extremely wealthy. And yes, this does include some individuals, but it mainly, in my experience, constitutes the big boys like centralized exchanges and market makers. I'm not going to name names, but just pick any of the top centralized exchanges and then a few of the market makers who essentially help keep price liquid on different altcoins and Bitcoin. Without market makers, you essentially don't have a market, because there's not always someone who wants to buy when you want to sell. They kind of take the other side of the trade. Now, here's where the interesting thing comes in, because having a look at something called open interest on the exchanges, which is essentially how much leverage positions are open. This could be leverage longs and leverage shorts. You begin to get a pretty interesting chart when you actually combine and overlay both of these, which I've spent, the time actually doing here. You can see here that the whales, this chart is in black, and I've added this open interest chart here in this orangey reddish color behind it. You can clearly see some interesting patterns playing out here when the whales, again, the likely centralized exchanges and market makers, when they begin buying, you can see here the change in 30 days really ramping up here back in around February, March 2024, in this massive rally we had. Okay, it actually started when there was negative open interest, meaning there was a lot less leverage positions open at that time. And essentially, a few weeks later, what's actually happened is we can see open interest really beginning to climb, okay, as the price of Bitcoin in black behind it began to rise as well. Now, that's by no coincidence. So pay attention in just 1 second, because I'm going to break this down for you and you are going to be surprised by it, and some of you extremely shocked. Okay, but first of all, I want to say, guys, we've been making some money in the private community. Boris, one of our head traders, called this excellent entry here on WorldCoin a whole $1 earlier than where the price currently is right now. Okay, he gave this here 3 days ago. He's also recently called Chainlink here. Plus, we've also got a whole bunch of members making money. You can see this guy here making money on our Pith call, Ethereum shorts. So if you want to get involved in the private community and not pay a single cent, check out level 0. You can actually unlock this completely for free. And when you do, what you'll also get is an additional reward system. You won't find this anywhere else. You can get any of our tiers completely for free. You can also get USDT up to $11,000 in your back pocket by just trading. Not to mention in level 0, again, for free, you get all of these amazing channels as well. Plus, we also do give away USDT with frequent competitions from Bitunics and Femex. And just when you thought it couldn't get better, we're still doing giveaways, guys. We're going to be doing this quite frequently now. We just ran one with Injective, so we gave $500 away to 2 people, and we're doing this to just help people. It's as simple as that. So if this interests you, I'll leave the links down below. Come in, join the private community, take the time to get it for free, and you will not regret it. Anyway, let's continue. When the whales started to sell, okay, you saw that open interest was kind of at highs. Now, not long after they really sold, and you can see how they went into the negative, so they were actually selling off a lot more than what they were buying over the last 30 days, open interest in orange actually started to fall. Now, when it started to fall, guess what whales started to do? They started to buy and buy and buy. Again, open interest down here is in the negative, and whales, you can see over here in black, are buying. It's almost a complete inverse correlation. Back over here on the April 7th drop, open interest is at negatives, and yet whales, okay, in black, are literally buying at record rates. Then, not long after they're buying, of course, open interest begins to flip positive. People are taking leverage positions again, likely leverage longs. And what happens at that point in time? Whales start to sell off and off and off. And if we just have a look at what's happening in today's circumstance, it's kind of the same thing. Ever since around the April drop over here, whales haven't been buying as much, maybe even possibly selling, okay, over the course of the last few months up until, kind of July. Now, you can see open interest as a consequence kind of like started to really, really fall off, actually going into the negative. And when it went negative, guess what whales started to do? They started to buy. And then it's, of course, come down. And now we are in extreme negatives. But what normally comes after negatives? When whales sell, you can see here pulling down open interest, is once open interest actually falls enough, once people get liquidated, once the market's in a bit of confusion, they again begin rapidly buying. So I am eyeing off what comes next, not so much what is happening now. So what essentially they're trying to do here is flush out the longs, which are in this red line, and the shorts in the green line by moving the price of Bitcoin up and down. And this is for 2 main reasons. Number one, the reason why centralized exchanges and market makers work together to do this is because they don't want people being in significant profit when we have these massive moves to the upside, because when that happens, these people take profit over here, all right? These leverage positions, they take profit. And when they take profit, the centralized exchanges have to pay them out. The other reason is essentially they can generate a lot of money and they can keep the trading fees coming through, and therefore they're making more and more money. What they're kind of doing right now is going to their 9 to 5 job. You are the ones paying them if you're the ones trading, especially on high leverage. You're essentially inviting them and giving them money, and they're saying, yeah, we're just going to keep taking your money until eventually whatever macro news comes out to help the market push up and give it a good reason to go up, they'll start pumping prices up eventually. So it's very important for 2 main reasons, okay? They essentially save themselves a whole bunch of payouts. They make a whole lot more money, not to mention as well, if we do end up going up, crazy numbers, say Bitcoin goes to $200,000 as a straight shoot, a lot of people will take profit. This will also ruin the market. So they kind of have a responsibility to ensure the market doesn't absolutely implode if everyone's in significant profit at the top. We can see here Marty Party on Twitter does a pretty good job of keeping track of all of these guys and their shenanigans. You can actually see the centralized exchanges sending USDT, ETH, Solana, Bitcoin, USDC to these market makers here. The same can be said here with Ethereum. Not long after the actual highs in Ethereum's price, guess what happens? Open interest suddenly falls to negative. The good thing now is open interest for Ethereum, okay, is actually at lows, as we are very close to all-time highs as well. So you can see here it's not negative yet, but it is quite low. This is actually a very good thing because, again, open interest being quite high around here is actually a pretty worrying thing because, again, these whales will want to pull the price down to avoid some of those things I mentioned to you earlier. Not to worry though, because you can see here the strategic ETH reserves, right? The treasury companies, they're buying a lot of ETH right now. This is still going up. If we add the ETFs to this as well here in blue, overall, we are still climbing. So at least in the case of Ethereum, things are looking quite good. In regards to Bitcoin, we're actually at a very key level right now of support. We are on the very bottom trend line in the ascending bull run channel. We actually haven't really broken and closed through this on the weekly time frame through the entire bull market. And usually Bitcoin likes to stay in these channels, okay, while it kind of trends upwards in the sort of, you could call bear market to bull market period. You can see right here back in 2017 and back here in the previous cycle, we do eventually break this going into a bull market. Seems kind of crazy right now because the height of this is around $200,000. But again, we're looking at the support right now and it is holding, which is good to see. So keep an eye on this level. We do not want to see a breakdown. The good news is we have broken back up above here on the moving averages, going back above the 100-day in orange. The good news is that these moving averages are beginning to condense, and as they condense, as we can see here, and also back over here, usually leads to pretty large price movements, okay? So what we're eyeing off here is essentially Bitcoin kind of getting its strength back, trending upwards like this, whilst these bands continue to compress, hopefully leading to another large move. Now, assessing the fair value of Bitcoin regarding the Bitcoin power law, which is this white line, essentially looks at the fair price of Bitcoin over the course of time, including diminishing returns. We can actually see we're pretty much smack bang on the fair price of Bitcoin right now. So the good news is we aren't overextended for where we're supposed to be. And looking at Bitcoin and gold as well, like I pointed out around a month and a half ago, okay, it was expected that we did kind of come up and then back down again in this little hump, because it's actually what we did at this exact same point in the previous cycle here. We blew out of this kind of consolidation in yellow, came back down again, and then started on our way up. And the same things happened, okay, this time around. Consolidated after the lows here from the tariff news. We've come up, sideways, and back down again. And then I don't think we'll kind of blast off from here like back in 2021, because this was all because of the overstimulation from the COVID checks. What I'm expecting to happen, and again, it is just a theory, is nothing like this, okay? It's more like if that didn't exist, kind of a general trend upwards to the high, like I believe the last cycle should have occurred, like it did back over here, okay? So something sort of like this. Now, I like to look at short-term holders when it comes to Bitcoin and when it might be a good time to buy and sell. The reason being is because short-term holders, which are the guys who pretty much buy and sell Bitcoin under 180 days, are typically more the fragile or emotional investor, to put it in a nice way, okay? So this chart here actually has a look at the MBRV and plots out here a nice moving average. Anyway, if I actually pull up a few different charts, which is mainly the Bitcoin, ETH, and others chart, and we have a look at every single time this MBRV line touched this moving average, okay, the last 3 times it's done this, including now, it did this on the tariff lows here for Bitcoin. It also did this back here at the lows right before the massive pump in August of 2024, and the same here for ETH, here, and of course, alts here and here. So historically speaking, at least in the last few years, it's been pretty good at telling us when we should look at possibly making an entry on either Bitcoin, ETH, or altcoins. It's not a guaranteed thing. You can see over here, we do sometimes go beneath it in bull markets, then back above. But generally speaking, it's a decent indicator in that. Fear and greed is also back to neutral right now. We're seeing, altcoins beginning to make a move. I wouldn't jump in, just blindly right now. If you guys have been watching my channel over the last few weeks, you would know my stance is just DCA. Okay, so steadily buy if you have the capital every single dip we have, and we have had one just a few days ago. When markets start to move, let them do their things, and I'm still holding a decent cash position right now for a much larger potential drop. I'm not getting FOMO. I'm not buying on these green days. Let the market do its thing. Funnily enough, looking at altcoins versus ETH, okay, I've shown this chart a few times now. I've highlighted some red dots here. Now, you may say, Kyron, these dots are just the lows in the others versus ETH chart. Well, actually, funnily enough, these are oversold, so in the green region here for the RSI. Okay, so we've had one right here, literally at the lows, right before alt season. This is alt season right over here. Okay, that's the massive alt season we know from 2021. It also signaled here and here, okay, which is here and here, and now recently massively oversold at the exact bottom of this chart, funnily enough, just like back over here before the massive run up in 2021. Now, what's interesting, if I actually come down here and pull up an index of a whole bunch of altcoins, Cardano, Solana, HBAR, right through to Render, Sandbox, and so on, you can actually see these points in time. So this, again, is the massive 2021 bull run. It also signaled down here in the lows of the bear market, also in the lows of the bear market here, and it's once again signaled way up here, kind of like it did over here after a bit of a push. So again, I'm not saying now is a good time to go FOMO buy in. If you've just dollar cost averaged over the course of every single dip, if you had the capital, now it's just a waiting game. Now it's just a time to sit back, relax, and if we do go up parabolically here, you can of course see the fruits of your labor. Never, ever, ever FOMO buy when the market starts turning green. Let me remind you guys, we're still seeing the path to alt season play out, as old as this chart may be. Okay, phase 1 to phase 2 is kind of underway. Looking at the ETF inflows, again, this is Bitcoin, all right? So this is how much money is flowing into Bitcoin from the ETFs, and it's slowing down. It has been over here since we really started to see ETH, okay, start to make some moves. Look at the inflows in USD here, around 150 million on the good days, 400 million on the best day over here, 300 million, 200 million. But then looking at Ethereum since this time, and you can actually see something way different. Look at the inflows, 600 million, 500 million, 300 million, 400 million, 1 billion. It's a lot more than even Bitcoin. Okay, so what does that tell you? It's phase 2 literally playing out on an ETF level. And if you have a look at copper to gold, which is a good indication on when we can expect alt season, because down here I have others versus Bitcoin. Right now, we're at a very similar point in time to where we were back over here and back over here, right before a possible alt season here as the copper to gold ratio goes up. So in my opinion, guys, looking at the overall premise of this video to begin with, yes, whales are selling, but it's a typical tactic they do to, again, prevent some of the things I mentioned at the start of the video. The underlying stats here, what's really happening and playing out, seems quite bullish still, at least I believe that. We're just at some very key levels right now we do want to be very careful of, but I am hopeful. So with that being said, thank you all for watching this far into the video. If you have made it this far and enjoyed yourself, I'd really appreciate a like down below, so thank you for doing that, and I can't wait to see your face in a couple days. Take good care. Bye-bye.